I should have known something was wrong when Alison spent 45 minutes picking out her earrings. My wife had never been indecisive about jewelry, or anything else for that matter. She stood in front of our bedroom mirror, holding up different pairs like she was defusing a bomb. "The pearls or the diamonds?" she asked, not looking at me. "Does it matter? It's just a company dinner." Her reflection shot me a look that could have frozen bourbon. "It's not just anything, Trevor. This is important." Everything was important to Alison these days. Her promotion to regional sales director 6 months ago had turned every company event into a Broadway audition. I watched her apply lipstick with surgical precision, wearing a black dress that cost more than my monthly car payment. "You remember what we discussed, right?" she said, capping the lipstick. "About keeping things professional tonight?" I loosened my tie. At 43, I'd been to enough corporate dinners to know the drill. Smile, nod, laugh at the boss's jokes, and try not to mention that half their compliance policies were written by someone who learned ethics from a cereal box. "I'll be the perfect corporate husband," I said. Seen but not heard. "Good." She grabbed her purse. "And Trevor, maybe don't mention the audit work. Some people there might remember the Meridian investigation." The Meridian investigation. 3 years ago, I'd led a compliance audit that resulted in 2 executives losing their jobs and the company paying a 7-figure settlement. It wasn't exactly small talk material, but it was honest work. The kind that kept me sleeping well at night, unlike some people in this business. We drove to Romano's in silence. The restaurant was the kind of place where they brought you bread you didn't order and charged you for the privilege. Alison's team had reserved the back room, a space decorated with enough fake Italian marble to build a small villa. "Trevor!" a voice called out as we entered. "Great to see you again." I turned to see a woman approaching with the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Renee something. I'd met her at last year's Christmas party. She worked in Alison's department, one of those people who treated office gossip like an Olympic sport. "Renee," I said, shaking her hand, "how's the sales world treating you?" "Oh, you know how it is. We're all just trying to keep up with your wife here." She gestured toward Alison, who was already working the room like a politician. "She's been doing incredibly well lately. All those late nights are really paying off." "Late nights?" "Oh, didn't she tell you? She and Graham have been burning the midnight oil on the Morrison account. Sometimes they don't leave the office until 10 or 11. Graham." I knew that name, though I couldn't place it immediately. "That's dedication," I said. "That's one word for it," Renee said with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Come on, let me introduce you to everyone." The room was filled with the usual corporate suspects, ambitious young associates trying to look important, middle managers protecting their territory, and a few senior executives who'd learned to hide their boredom behind expensive scotch. Alison was holding court near the bar, animated in a way I hadn't seen at home in months. "Everyone," she called out as we approached, "I'd like you to meet my husband, Trevor." A round of polite hellos followed. I shook hands and exchanged pleasantries, playing my role as the supportive spouse. Then Alison's voice cut through the conversation like a blade. "He's just someone I live with, basically my past." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around the table, people laughed, that uncomfortable corporate laughter that fills awkward moments. I felt my face flush, but I kept my expression neutral. 20 years of marriage reduced to a punchline. "Well," said a voice from across the table. "Great, then we can talk alone." I looked up to see a man in his early 50s, silver-haired and confident in the way that comes with corner offices and stock options. He was smiling, but there was something predatory in his eyes, something that made Alison's face go pale. "You know him?" she whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. The man's smile widened. "Oh, we're old friends, aren't we, Trevor?" And then it hit me. Graham Cole. 3 years ago, he'd been the CFO at Meridian Industries when I'd led the compliance audit that destroyed his career. He'd been forced to resign in disgrace, his reputation in tatters. I'd cost him everything. Now he was here, at my wife's company dinner, talking about having conversations alone with her. I was already done. The drive home was a masterclass in marital tension. Alison stared out the passenger window while I navigated the late-night traffic, both of us pretending the evening had gone well. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. "That was Graham Cole," I said finally. "I know." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "The same Graham Cole from Meridian Industries, the one who tried to bribe city officials for zoning permits." "Yes, Trevor, I know who he is." I pulled into our driveway and stopped the engine. Our townhouse looked the same as always. Red brick, black shutters, the kind of respectable facade that hid a multitude of sins. "How long has he been your boss?" 6 months. She was already unbuckling her seatbelt, eager to escape this conversation. 6 months. The same time you got promoted. It's not what you think. I'm not thinking anything yet, but I'm starting to wonder. Inside, Alison kicked off her heels and headed straight for the kitchen. I followed, watching as she poured herself a generous glass of wine. Her hands were shaking slightly, barely noticeable unless you'd been married to someone for 2 decades. "He's different now," she said without looking at me. "People change. Men like Graham Cole don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are. You don't know him. I know him well enough. I know he embezzled $200,000 from a children's charity. I know he falsified environmental reports that could have poisoned half the city's water supply. I know he offered me $50,000 to lose some paperwork." She turned to face me, wine glass in hand. "That was 3 years ago. Corruption doesn't have an expiration date, Alison. You're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the man whose career I destroyed is now in a position to influence my wife's career. That's either the world's biggest coincidence or something else entirely." She took a long sip of wine. "I'm going to bed." "We're not done talking about this." "Yes, we are." I watched her walk away, noting the way she moved, careful, deliberate, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping predator. 20 years of marriage had taught me to read her moods, and right now, every signal was screaming guilt. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then headed to my home office. As a compliance consultant, I'd learned that the truth usually hid in plain sight, buried in emails, expense reports, calendar entries, the kind of mundane documents that most people ignored. Alison had always been careless with her paperwork. Bank statements left on the kitchen counter, credit card bills stuffed in random drawers. Tonight, that carelessness might finally cost her. I found what I was looking for in her gym bag. A second phone, sleek and black, the kind people bought when they needed to keep secrets. My hands were steady as I powered it on, though my heart was racing like I'd run a marathon. The text messages told the story better than any novel. "Graham, can't stop thinking about last night. You were incredible." "Alison, we have to be careful. Trevor's getting suspicious." "Graham, let him suspect. After what he did to me, I'm going to enjoy this." "Alison, this isn't about revenge. I love you." "Graham, I love you too, and I love that he has no idea what's coming." I scrolled through weeks of messages, arrangements for hotel meetings, declarations of love, and something else, plans. Graham wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was using her to get back at me. And Alison was either too infatuated or too naive to see it. The last message was from earlier tonight. "Graham, seeing his face when you introduced him was perfect. Phase 2 starts Monday." Phase 2. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. Whatever Graham had planned, it was bigger than an affair. He wanted to destroy me the same way I'd destroyed him, professionally, personally, completely. The old Trevor might have confronted them directly, might have let emotion override strategy. But 20 years in compliance had taught me patience, had taught me that the best revenge was the kind that looked like justice. I powered up my laptop and began to work. If Graham wanted to play games, I'd give him a game he'd never forget. But I'd be playing by my rules, not his. By dawn, I had everything I needed. Graham Cole was about to learn that some auditors never really stop auditing. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that made everything look like a crime scene. I sat in my car outside Meridian Financial, Graham's new company, watching employees hurry through the rain like ants fleeing a flood. Amazing how quickly people could rebuild their lives after a scandal. Even more amazing how quickly they could forget the lessons they should have learned. My phone buzzed with a text from Samir Patel, my oldest friend, and the closest thing I had to a partner in this business. Coffee? I have information you'll want to hear. We met at Murphy's, a dive bar that served breakfast until noon, and didn't ask questions about why two middle-aged men needed to discuss business over whiskey at 10 in the morning. Samir was already there when I arrived, nursing a cup of coffee that looked strong enough to wake anyone. "You look like hell," he said, as I slid into the booth across from him. "Thanks. That's exactly what every man wants to hear on a Monday morning." "I'm serious, Trevor. When's the last time you slept?" I signaled the waitress for coffee. "Sleep is overrated. Tell me what you found." Samir pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. Graham Cole's employment history since Meridian Industries. 3 different companies in 3 years, each one bigger than the last. Either he's the most talented executive in the city, or someone's been helping him climb the ladder. I scrolled through the information. Financial analyst to department head to regional director. The kind of career trajectory that usually took a decade, not 3 years. How does a disgraced CFO rebuild his reputation this fast? By being very careful about who he works with. Look at the companies. I studied the names. All of them were clients or partners of major consulting firms. All of them had recently undergone compliance reviews. All of them had been cleared by auditors who specialized in rehabilitation cases, the kind of people who helped fallen executives get back on their feet for the right price. "He's been buying his way back to respectability," I said. "That's my guess. But here's the interesting part." Samir leaned forward. 6 months ago, he joined Alison's company. 1 month later, she gets promoted to regional director. 2 months after that, she starts getting bonuses that are 30% higher than anyone else in her position. The coffee arrived, black and bitter, perfect for my mood. Conflict of interest? At minimum, but probably more than that. Samir pulled up another screen. I did some digging into their expense reports. Alison's been billing the company for hotel stays, dinners, even weekend conferences that don't exist. Graham's been approving fraudulent expenses. Looks that way. And if I can find it in a few hours of casual research, imagine what a real audit would uncover. I thought about the text messages on Alison's phone, about Graham's plan for Phase 2. Whatever he was planning, it involved more than just an affair. It involved using company resources to fund their relationship while setting up some kind of trap for me. "There's something else," Samir said. "Remember Tom Bradley and Mike Chen from the old crew?" Tom and Mike had been part of our regular poker group for years, along with their wives Jennifer and Lisa. We'd had dinner together monthly, taken vacations together, been each other's emergency contacts. The kind of friendships that felt permanent until they suddenly weren't. What about them? "They've been asking questions about you, about your work, your marriage, your financial situation. Jennifer called my wife last week, fishing for information about whether you and Alison were having problems." The pieces clicked together like a puzzle solving itself. Graham wasn't just planning to destroy my marriage, he was planning to destroy my entire social circle, turn my friends against me, isolate me professionally and personally. How long has this been going on? A few weeks, maybe a month. Sarah didn't think much of it at first. just normal gossip. But when Jennifer started asking about your consulting clients and whether you'd been acting strange lately, Samir shrugged. Seemed like more than casual interest. I finished my coffee and stood up. I need to make some calls. Trevor. Samir grabbed my arm. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Graham's not the same man you audited 3 years ago. He's learned from his mistakes. So have I. The rain had stopped by the time I got back to my car, but the sky was still the color of old pewter. I sat in the parking lot and made the call I'd been dreading. Tom Bradley. Tom, it's Trevor. We need to talk. A pause. About what? About why you've been asking questions about my marriage. Another pause, longer this time. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Murphy's Bar, tonight at 8. Come alone. Trevor, I don't think... 8 o'clock, Tom. Don't make me ask twice. I hung up before he could respond. 20 years of friendship, and it had come to this. But if Graham wanted to turn my friends into weapons, I'd show him what a real war looked like. Murphy's was exactly the kind of place where friendships went to fade. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and a bartender who'd seen enough broken relationships to fill a cemetery. Tom was already there when I arrived, hunched over a beer like a man at his own wake. You look nervous, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Can you blame me? You sounded like you wanted to ruin someone on the phone. Tom Bradley had been my friend for 15 years. We'd met at a company softball game, bonded over our mutual inability to hit a curveball, and built a friendship on shared cynicism about corporate America. He was a good man, or at least I'd thought he was. Tell me about Graham Cole, I said. Tom's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Tell me about the conversations you've been having, the questions you've been asking about my marriage. Trevor, you're scaring me. Good. I'm scared too. Scared that my friend of 15 years has been working with the man who's trying to destroy my life. Tom took a long pull from his beer. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He approached me 3 weeks ago. Said he was worried about you, that you'd been acting erratic at work. Said Alison had confided in him that you'd been drinking too much, staying out late, maybe having an affair. The lie was so perfect, it was almost beautiful. Graham had painted me as the unfaithful spouse while positioning himself as the concerned colleague. And you believed him? I didn't know what to believe. You haven't been yourself lately. Alison seemed distant when we saw you last month. And Graham, he seemed genuinely concerned. Graham Cole is a criminal, Tom. 3 years ago, I led the audit that exposed him for embezzlement and bribery. Now he's sleeping with my wife and using you to gather information about me. Tom set down his beer. That's impossible. Is it? Think about the questions he asked you to ask. Think about the information he wanted. Was any of it really about helping me? I watched Tom's face as the pieces fell into place. The realization that he'd been played, that his concern for a friend had been weaponized against that same friend. Jesus, he whispered. What have I done? You've been a useful idiot. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Tom could answer, the bar door opened and Mike Chen walked in, followed by his wife Jennifer and Tom's wife Lisa. They looked like a delegation arriving for peace talks, which meant this was about to get much worse. Trevor, Mike said, approaching our table. We need to talk. Apparently everyone needs to talk tonight. Pull up chairs. They arranged themselves around the table like a tribunal. Jennifer looked uncomfortable, Lisa looked angry, and Mike looked like a man who'd rather be anywhere else in the world. We've been hearing some concerning things, Lisa said without preamble. About your marriage, about your behavior. Let me guess. Graham Cole's been sharing his concerns. He's worried about you, Jennifer said. And frankly, so are we. You've been distant, aggressive, paranoid. Paranoid? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My wife is having an affair with a man who's trying to destroy me professionally, and you think I'm paranoid? That's exactly what we're talking about, Mike said. These wild accusations, this obsession with conspiracy theories. Show them, I said to Tom. Tell them what you just learned. Tom looked around the table, then back at me. I can't. This is between you and Alison. No, I said, standing up. This stopped being between me and Alison the moment you all decided to get involved, the moment you chose to believe a criminal over a friend. Trevor, please, Lisa said. We're trying to help. You're trying to help Graham Cole destroy my life. And the worst part is, you don't even know you're doing it. I pulled out my phone and played one of the audio recordings I'd made from Alison's burner phone. Graham's voice, clear and unmistakable, talking about his plan to destroy Trevor the same way he destroyed me. The table went silent. Jennifer's face turned white. Mike stared at the phone like it might bite him. That's impossible, Lisa said, but her voice lacked conviction. 20 years of friendship, I said, looking around the table. 20 years of trust, of shared experiences, of being there for each other, and you threw it all away for a man you've known for 3 weeks. We didn't know, Jennifer whispered. You didn't want to know. It was easier to believe I was the problem than to consider that your new friend might be lying. I headed for the door, then turned back. When this is over, when Graham's true nature comes out, remember this moment. Remember that you chose him over me. The cold night air hit my face like a slap. Behind me, I could hear voices rising in argument, friendships fracturing in real time. Graham had wanted to isolate me, and he'd succeeded. But he'd also given me something valuable. Clarity. I no longer had anything left to lose. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Meridian Financial like a man with nothing to lose, because that's exactly what I was. The receptionist looked up with the kind of practiced smile that could sell insurance to anyone. I'm here to see Graham Cole, I said. Do you have an appointment? Tell him Trevor Miles is here. He'll see me. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Graham in his corner office, watching him try to project confidence while his hands shook slightly around his coffee cup. The office was decorated with the kind of aggressive masculinity that screamed insecurity. Leather furniture, sports memorabilia, a putting green in the corner. Trevor, he said, spreading his arms wide. What a pleasant surprise. I'm sure it is. We need to talk. About what? About the fact that you're sleeping with my wife, about the fraudulent expense reports you've been approving, about your plan to destroy my reputation using my own friends. Graham's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in his eyes. I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you don't. I pulled out a thick folder and placed it on his desk. Compliance audit, phase 1, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, travel expenses, all approved by you, all for services that were never provided. He opened the folder, his face growing paler with each page. Where did you get this? I'm a compliance consultant, Graham. This is what I do. And right now, I'm very good at my job. You can't prove anything. Can I? I pulled out my phone and played another recording from Alison's burner phone, Graham's voice discussing how to manipulate expense reports to fund their affair. Amazing what people will say when they think they're safe. Graham closed the folder. What do you want? I want you to understand something. 3 years ago, you tried to bribe me. You thought everyone had a price, that integrity was just another commodity to be bought and sold. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now. This is about revenge. No, this is about justice. Revenge would be personal. This is professional. I stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the city below. From this height, people looked like ants, scurrying around with their small concerns and smaller ambitions. By tomorrow morning, I said, copies of this audit will be on the desks of your CEO, your board of directors, and the State Ethics Commission. Your employment here will be terminated, your professional reputation will be destroyed, and you'll be facing criminal charges for fraud. You can't do this. I already have. The only question now is what happens to Alison. Graham leaned forward. She doesn't know about the expenses. She just submitted what I told her to submit. So, she's either a co-conspirator or a useful idiot. Either way, her career is over. Please, Graham said, and for the first time, his composure cracked. She loves me. No, she doesn't. She loves the idea of you, the power, the status, the excitement of an affair. But love? Real love doesn't destroy innocent people for sport. I walked back to his desk and picked up the folder. You have 24 hours to resign and disappear. If you're still in this building tomorrow, I'll make sure the criminal charges include conspiracy and racketeering. What about Alison? Alison is my problem, not yours. Your relationship with her ends today. I was halfway to the door when Graham called out, You think you've won, but you've lost everything. Your wife, your friends, your marriage. It's all gone. I turned back to face him. You're right. I have lost everything. But here's the difference between us, Graham. I can sleep at night knowing I didn't compromise my principles to keep what I had. Can you say the same? His silence was answer enough. That evening, I sat in my home office, watching Alison pace the living room through the security monitor I'd installed months ago. She was on her phone, probably talking to Graham, probably planning their next move. It didn't matter anymore. The divorce papers were already filed, along with a motion to freeze our joint assets pending investigation of financial misconduct. By morning, Alison would discover that her access to our accounts had been suspended, her credit cards canceled, her company car impounded. Graham had wanted to destroy me by taking away everything I valued, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I valued the same things he did. Money, status, the approval of others. These were Graham's weaknesses, not mine. What I valued was integrity, and that was something no one could take from me. The front door opened, and Alison walked in, her face flushed with anger and desperation. We need to talk, she said. No, I replied, not looking up from my computer. We really don't. Trevor, please. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. But I'm not interested in explanations anymore. She stood in the doorway, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 20 years ago, vulnerable, uncertain, human. Then the moment passed, and she was just another person who'd chosen to side with a criminal over her own husband. I'm leaving, she said finally. Good. The locks will be changed by tomorrow. You can't do this. I already have. After she left, I poured myself a scotch and walked out to the back deck. The city stretched out before me, full of lights and possibilities. Somewhere out there, Graham was probably packing his office, and Alison was probably crying in her car. Tomorrow, the story would break. The local business journal would run a front-page article about corruption at Meridian Financial. Graham would be arrested within a week. Alison would be unemployed and unemployable. My phone rang. Tom Bradley. Trevor, he said, I owe you an apology. Yes, you do. Can we talk? All of us, Mike, Jennifer, Lisa, we want to make this right. I looked out at the city lights, thinking about friendship and betrayal, about the price of loyalty and the cost of forgiveness. Maybe, I said finally, but not tonight. Tonight, I'm going to sit here and enjoy my scotch and think about how sometimes the good guys actually win. After I hung up, I raised my glass to the night sky. Here's to you, Graham, I said aloud. Thanks for teaching me that some things are worth fighting for. The scotch burned going down, but it was a